welcome to everyone here with us live today. Thanks for joining us for another Mindful Journey guest interview. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you've been with us for a number of these guest interviews, well, welcome back. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat function and we'll get to them on the back end of the conversation. Our guest today, quite frankly, is somebody who doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'll briefly go through a little bit more of his more formal bio before we delve into conversation. Vince Papale, who is here today, is somebody who I shared with him on the front end prior to us starting. For those of you who might have already been listening in, I seen the movie Invincible no less than 100 times. It was a film that was released in 2006 by Walt Disney Pictures about an ordinary man who defied the odds, about a man who was willing to do whatever it took for as long as it took to fight for his dreams. In 1976, as he was 30 years old, having only been playing football 1 year organized, he played high school football for just 1 year, never collegiately. The Philadelphia Eagles, who were in desperate need of some energy and enthusiasm, as was the city of Philadelphia and the country itself, having come through Vietnam War and dealing with the sweeping energy crisis, Vince was their beacon of hope. He tried out for the team in a public tryout, and against, again, all the odds, he ultimately made the team. Not only did he make the team, but he was eventually voted as a special teams captain by his teammates, earning their respect. And he also became the man of the year for the Philadelphia Eagles in 1978. His career ultimately concluded as a result of a shoulder injury, but that didn't stop Vince from continuing to inspire. Even still today, he continues to spread his message of hope and inspiration as one of the leading motivational speakers in our country. He's a cancer survivor and quite frankly, again, somebody who from afar and unknowingly to him, he has been quite the inspiration to me. So if you've not seen the movie Invincible, I highly recommend it, but we're going to get to hear from real life Invincible today, Vince Papale. Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you too, Adam. I appreciate that very much. And hey, man, you're putting too much on me. I just this guy chasing the dream. It was out there, and I know a lot of the listeners and viewers, they've had that opportunity. And you get the right people behind you, things happen in a really good way. So, well, I appreciate that. 76. That was so long ago. That's how old I am, for crying out loud. With a couple of kids that are in their 20s, that everybody thinks of my grandchildren. But, I did everything 10 or 15, 20 years too soon, but it's been great. And, here we are from Jupiter, Florida. And, you're talking about just real quick about Philly and what it was like back there in 76 and also around the country, all that was going on. I've got two of my favorite hats because we've got the Eagles tomorrow night playing against the Houston Texans in Houston, and they're undefeated, and we've got our Phillies right over here that are playing in my hometown of Philadelphia for the World Series. So I shuffle hats tomorrow night. Yeah, Philly's on fire right now. My son Vinny's up there, and he said, "Dad, you can't even imagine what the city's like. The weather is fantastic, beautiful football days, and good time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. And our soccer team just won the semifinals. They're going into the soccer championship. And ironically, the head coach is my next door neighbor for my pit stop house, I call in Philly. So a lot of fun things going. Yeah, it's really cool. And I know you're on the other side of the state. I'm in Jupiter now, everybody. Yeah. So if you're ever in the Jupiter area, stop by and say hi.
Yeah, that's great, Vince. Well, I love the humility with what you just opened there. And yes, I don't know if I shared this with you on the front end, but I'm shamefully admit right now I'm a Steeler fan. So
that's all right.
The Eagles just crushed us. And I was talking to one of my good friends who I think's on the call today. He's a Philadelphia guy. He was excited to hear this conversation because your name in Philly, of course, it means a great deal, right? It was just a source of inspiration. But he didn't rub it in my face too badly, but he was watching the Phillies last night. And yeah, Philly, it's a great time for the city. Would you mind taking us back, Vince, to 76? And from what you recall of those moments, what gave you the inspiration to chase your dream in a time when, any 30-year-old would say, this will never happen? What gave you the inspiration to say, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Well, I never put myself in a box, Adam, and I never said, hey, I'm 30 years old, this can't be done. I let the other naysayers and all the doubters and all those that were jealous of what I was doing because I was taking a shot at something that's never been done before. I never thought of that. It was never part of my mind process. It was just, it was there. And it was a tryout. And I had tried out for other things before and I'd done very well. And I tried out at a couple of things too. Like, for example, I was trying to get into the Olympic decathlon, at least qualify for the trials, and I failed. I didn't get there for whatever reason. Some of it was third party stuff, but I didn't get there. But I didn't use that as an excuse to stop me from going on to this next thing. And I was in fantastic condition. The real story, if you saw the movie, they had me working as a part-time bartender and a substitute teacher. And in reality, I had just been given a leave of absence from my high school alma mater, where I was a full-time school teacher. I was teaching business in the middle school for 6 years, and also was the head track coach and the assistant football coach. And ironically, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to go up and see all the guys that I coached back 40, 50 years ago at Innerberg. We're having a huge 50-year reunion, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So I had that going on, and also I was working on my master's degree. A lot of the kids back then that were in the 13, 14, 15-year-old age, with Vietnam going on, pot was just starting to really become prevalent in the neighborhoods and with the kids. And they were, I was this young, hip guy, 22, 23, 24, long hair, athlete, had a different vibe, about the way I wanted things to be done and in the classroom. And they're all coming to me and asking me to help them with their issues. And I'd just gone through a wicked divorce, and I wasn't feeling too good about myself at that time. So I figured I'd go for my master's degree in counseling. Maybe I'd self-medicate and also help others. And you got to be truthful here. And it worked out, and I was feeling pretty good. And actually, I got a shot in the World Football League, and did very well in that. And then the league folded. And at that point, my school had given me a leave of absence and said, "Hey, listen, get this football crap out of your mind. We have a job waiting for you. You can get your coaching job. You can get all this stuff back, but get this out. But we don't have anything for you right now." So the movie, when they make that movie about you, anybody looking, listening, or you, Adam, they're going to take a few liberties. So they didn't go back like they did, for example, with Rudy, with his father, and also relationship, and my good buddy Rudy, by the way. I love Rudy Ruder. And Jim Morris, and the same guy that did our movies, the same guy that did Rookie and Miracle. So we had that pedigree. So was make a long story short, it was there. I had nothing to lose. What's going to happen as long as I gave it everything I had. I'm telling you, my wildest dreams, and I'm a season ticket holder for 10 years. So I'm sitting in the stands as, I could do this, and the guy said, "All right, maybe better settle down on your beers." I said, "No, I can play out there. I know I got game." And then when and they started laughing at me, but God darn, they were the ones that were behind me when I got that tryout in April in 1976. And Dick Vermeil coming in, just coaching UCLA, that just won the Rose Bowl over Woody Hayes in Ohio State. And he was legendary, but he knew nothing about football in Philadelphia, other than that they were a losing franchise. So he changed things around a little bit.
Yeah. So why did he, Vince? That's interesting. And I've never known. Let me know before I ask that. It's showing that my connection is unstable. And I apologize about that. Are you hearing and seeing me okay?
You're looking good and sounding great.
Okay, perfect. Just let me know, or anyone who's listening, please put in the chat function if you can't see me at any point. I'm sorry about the instability. But so with Vermeil coming in the movie, of course, it does show that from the fans' perspective, what's this crazy coach doing thinking he's going to get a tryout and actually get someone from this tryout? But did that take place as it shows in the movie? Did he do that to try to ignite a spark in the city? Is that the intention of the tryout?
I'm not sure if that was a motivation. That's the way the movie chose to do it. But here's the deal. See, Coach Vermeil was the first full-time special teams coach ever when he was at the Los Angeles Rams prior to going to UCLA, and George Allen was the head coach. And so what George Allen back in the early 70s had a free agent tryout, just like Coach Ramil did. And he got
Mhm.
one guy out of it. His name was Herb Mulkey, was a running back. He played college football, but wasn't even a walk-on free agent. I mean, he was a tryout free agent, and
Mhm.
it was very successful. And you talk to Coach Ramil and ask him who his mentors and who his idols were. George Allen was one of them. So George
Mm.
Allen was successful in finding that guy, and there it was, and I had to ask him. I said, after the tryout, and a few years later, I had the courage to ask him, and I said, "What did you see?" He says, "Your speed, man.
Wow.
You just ran like a deer," and he was very I raced Billy White Shoes Johnson against a 100-yard dash, and he beat me by a stride. I mean, that's the kind of speed that I had. And
Wow.
he said if you had any football skills, I was going to at least bring you into training camp. And
Mhm.
after he saw and I popped a 4 or 5 in grass,
Mhm.
and then he says, okay, throw the ball just like the movie, pretty much just like it happened in the movie. And next thing you know, we had that conversation that in the movie it has us showing it outside because my car had broken down, but in
Mhm.
reality it was in the it was at the stadium, at Veteran Stadium. It was in the elevator, and
Mhm.
we had that similar conversation. And I figured, okay, it was all over with. Thank you. And the coach thought I was great. It
Mhm.
was all good. Never expected. 15 minutes later, the athletic trainer comes over, Otho Davis. Hey, I don't know what's going on here, Papale, but they want to see you upstairs. Upstairs is the executive offices, where Coach
Yeah.
Ramil's office is, and the general manager and the owner, Mr. Toast. And I get in the elevator, I go up to the executive offices, and I come out, and I'd never been there before. And again, keep in mind, I'm a season ticket holder. I'm seeing all
Yeah.
these pictures of Tommy McDonald, my idols,
Yeah.
on the wall, they're murals. So they say, yeah, Mr. Murray is expecting you. And Mr. Murray was Jimmy Murray, who was our general manager. And he knew about me because he was a Villanova guy and I was a St. Joe's guy. So, with my track and field and all that stuff that I was doing, I was pretty well known in Philly and that arena, but never from the football side. But I had to walk by Coach Ramil's office on the way in Mr. Murray's office.
Mhm.
And he said, "Hey, Vinny," he says, "man, you look good out there. I really liked what I saw." Thanks, coach. And he knew my name, which was really cool. And when I got inside and I talked to Jimmy Murray, and he said, "We'd like to offer you a contract." I said, "What?"
Wow.
And I said, "Well, I'm figuring, going to be around 60, 70,000. It was 21,000 plus a $2,000 roster bonus." And I said, "Do I have to give up my season tickets?" He said, "Well, don't give them up yet. You still have to make the team." And so that happened in April, and we had the training camp wasn't going to be coming till right around the 4th of July. Actually, training camp started July 3rd, uh, right before the 4th. It was pretty crazy, and the training camp was just 5 miles from where I grew up, which was a real plus for me. Which was another story. But I said, "Do I have to give up my season tickets?" He says, "You might want to hang on to them. You got to make the team." But he said, "Here's the deal." He says, "You now have the rights to use our stadium and to train." And I
Mhm.
said, "You're kidding." So I the next day I'm there at 9 o'clock as soon as it opened up. And who do I meet? Roman Gabriel, who was our quarterback then.
Mhm.
And the guy I'm cheering for in the stands because he had Harold Carmichael and the Fire High Gang.
Mhm.
And we became friends. And he actually introduced me to his friend who was a strength and conditioning guy, Gus Hoffling. And he taught me a little kung fu, and he worked me on. And I had my track stuff. I showed him my track stuff, and we
Yeah.
blended it together. And I was in absolutely fantastic condition when training camp came, and it was that as just like the movie showed, it
Yeah.
really did happen. And
Wow.
in the end, they changed the scene around a little bit about how I found out I made the team, but because they called it a Rudy moment. If you want to hear about it, let me know. It's pretty funny. But
Yeah. I'd
yeah,
love to. No, please share with us because I mean, I'm intrigued because in the scene and in the movie, I think they show you telling your buddy your car's broken down,
yeah,
and you're
yeah,
saying, and he says, "You're a freaking Philadelphia Eagle, aren't you?"
yeah.
And so, how does it actually transpire, Vince?
Well, yeah, they created that scene, which was a pretty cool scene. Actually, I called my buddy Chuck. Yo, Chuck, come on, maybe we're going out. We're going to Max's tonight. I'm a Philadelphia Eagle. So that's how that all happened. And my car that I had back then, was a little sports car convertible that, and keep in mind, I'm teaching and I was coaching, and I used to take the pole vault mats and I put it actually over top of my car, and I drive across the street so I could put it out on the track, right? But so I don't know that I made the team. Now, we had 6 preseason games back then,
Mm-hmm.
6 preseason games, everybody, and they were and our training camp was 8 weeks, full contact, full pads, and pretty insane. And so anyway, I don't know if I had made the team, but I did know statistically I led the team in touchdowns and receptions.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. This
Yeah.
guy, we got a guy that's in the Hall of Fame right now that I was going head to head with. And, but they knew he was going to make the team. So I got a lot of reps, to see what I could do, because coach really was behind me, and he really wanted me in the worst way to make the team. You could ask him that. But anyway, it comes time when I think, okay, I made the team. I walk into the locker room, and there's a locker. My name is spelled correctly this time. There's a jersey, 83. I've got my training camp equipment was there, and I was, so at any rate, the Turk is the guy who cuts you, right? He's the
Mm-hmm.
one that says, coach wants to see you bring a playbook. So the Turk, and it was Jimmy, and it was my buddy Bill Davis. He comes
Mm-hmm.
walking to me, and let's say this is actually the screenplay for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say this is my playbook, and he comes walking to me, and I see him, and he didn't say anything. I grabbed it, and I was just ready to hand it to me, and he started laughing at me, and he just shook his head, like this, and he goes over and points over to another guy. He said, "Coach wants to see you. Bring your playbook." And I'm thinking, "Oh man, I think
Mm.
I made the team," but they never told me. So we're playing the Cowboys. So now we're playing, and the Eagles and the Phillies are playing in the same stadium, and the stadium set up because it's springtime or summertime. Stadium set up for baseball, and I'm in
Yeah.
right field stretching, looking up in my stand, seeing where my dad and everybody, all my friends, we all sat. And then Coach
Yeah.
Ramil walks over to me. He said, "Congratulations, old man." He said, "You're a Philadelphia Eagle. Welcome to the team." And
Wow.
I went crazy. And I said, "Can I make a phone call?" He said, "You gonna have a press conference?" I said, "No, can I call my dad?" Because
Yeah.
my dad worked at Westinghouse, and
Yeah.
he'd been there for 30 some years. So I went to the Phillies dugout, and I knew there was a payphone there. And I made a collect call to the shop steward at Westinghouse, because that was the call we always had to make in case,
Yeah.
we needed our dad right away. And he said, "Did you make the team? Did you make the team?" And I said, "Hey, Slim, tell Kingy." My dad's nickname was King. I said, "Tell Kingy his little boys are Philadelphia Eagle." And they went nuts. You could hear it going on in the background. But when Rudy had told his father that he had gotten accepted into Notre Dame, there was that same reaction. So we couldn't
Mm-hmm.
use that kind of a scene because they would have called it plagiarism in a Rudy moment. And I laugh at
Mm.
Rudy all the time. And Rudy and I, we were just together and doing an autograph signing, and we're the best of friends. And we go back and forth, with
Yeah.
some really good stuff. And that's how they created that scene. But hey, listen,
Wow.
man, I made the team, got got my pension. That's the ultimate last laugh, and overcame the odds and proved people wrong. All the naysayers that were there, and can't be done.
Yeah.
Resume, play college football, and end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Vince, that's amazing. I thank you for just sharing the real life portrayal of how it transpired, because I mean, Hollywood obviously puts its own twist and it was impactful, but hearing it from your voice, I'm just imagining how proud your dad must have been in those moments, as somebody who was, a blue collar worker, always fighting for his family. And what a cool story. And yeah, thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you.
I'd
Yeah,
love to know, like, why do you think, because this leads me to something else I want to talk about later, but why do you think you were such a catalyst for hope in Philadelphia in those moments?
because I was one of them. It's like
Mm.
right now, you want to see what the real Philadelphia fans are. You watch that game tonight or wherever you're seeing this. If the Phillies are still in the World Series and you see it in Philadelphia, you see that enthusiasm and that pride that they have for the city of Philadelphia. And I was one of them. I was that guy that
Mm.
sat in the stands. I was that one that bled green. I'm the one that bled red. My mother was a great baseball player back before World War II, traveling
Mhm.
up and down the East Coast, playing hardball, not
Mhm.
softball, not a league of their own kind of thing. I mean, and and she was a big Phillies fan. And Philly sports were a big part of our life. We didn't have hockey, but we had the Philadelphia Warriors and Wilt Chamberlain when I was growing up. And so
Mhm.
I represented them, and I think that resonation. And I think Coach Ramil saw that. He saw the training camp. Every time I make a catch, the fans would explode. He didn't know, because he didn't really know Philadelphia geography then, but he
Mhm.
didn't know the training camp at Widener University, Widener College it was back then, was just 8 miles from where I grew up. So all the guys that I'm playing semi-pro football, I played rough touch football, and
Mhm.
my students, at Edinburgh, and my friends and everybody. There, once the legend started to grow, and when I get through the first game, the second, the third game, next thing you know, I'm scoring touchdowns, I'm making hits, I'm causing fumbles, and they were coming. They filled their coolers up with beer, and they were coming to watch me,
Yeah.
and that had a big impact on the coach, and I know it had a tremendous impact when they made that final decision. He was the one that says, "No, we got to keep this guy," and
Yeah.
it pissed a lot of my teammates off at that particular time. But I won them over,
Yeah.
with my play, and I kept my mouth shut, and
Yeah.
just let let my example be the way that I'm going to play the game. And I didn't back away from anybody. And back then, you were allowed to hit
Yeah.
people below the waist, and I went anybody that had a different color jersey, I went after them, and
Yeah.
did not befriend me with a lot of the guys on the team at that point. Were you trying to get us hurt? I said, no. If you don't want me to hit you, just get out of my way. I'm just trying to make this team. I
Yeah.
said, look, I've invested in you guys, especially some of the veterans. I've
Yeah.
invested 10 years in you as a season ticket holder. Give me a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like me. I own you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's funny, Vince. I could imagine though as an outsider um why they would feel the way that they did in relation to, who's this guy coming in here thinking he's going to take our spot? He's never even played college football. So, what was your mindset in those moments when you had to deal with that adversity? Because I think, and let me add some more onto that question, because I think a lot of times people choose not to pursue their dreams because of the naysayers. They fear that
Right.
the resistance they get from people or the unkind words that people may say about them will be too much of a deterrent to keep them going. So, what do you recall of your mindset in those moments when people said, "Oh, Papale can't make it; he's not good enough"? How were you able to persevere? What pulled you is what I'm asking. What pulled
Well,
you when you feel like you couldn't pull yourself?
my dad, my dad. Um,
Mm,
my mom suffered from mental illness. She was in and out of mental hospitals when I was growing up. My dad never. He was always there. He was always at Rock, working at Westinghouse on strike half the time, driving a truck, pumping gas, having a gas station, doing whatever he could to put food on the table. And then my high school coach, who was right there with me as I was struggling as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, when everybody in the neighborhood, oh, Vince lives in a housing project, his mom's a nut and all this stuff, and I'm not even 5 feet tall. I was going through all that crap.
mm,
And these were the ones that I looked at them. I couldn't let them down. And my high
mm,
school coach gave me this great quote out of him, and it said, "Happy are those who dream dreams and are willing to pay the price to make the dreams come true." I was willing to pay the price, but my freaking mom and dad, they paid the price. My mom gave it everything she had for her family, and it broke her down. And my dad never quit on us, and there was no way that I was going to quit on them. And I've been called worse than what the guys were calling me on the field, all pro practice and all that stuff, because I knew I was starting to piss them off, and I was starting to get their attention. So I just kept my mouth shut. I wasn't cocky, but I knew that the wide receivers coach and a couple of the guys were behind me. Dennis Franks, my dear friend Dennis Franks, who I lost almost a year ago to the day, was always there with me, number 53, the white knuckle guy.
mhm,
We banded together. Another kid from Villanova, safety from Villanova. We were the ones that everybody said couldn't make it, and we wound up making it. Steve
mhm.
Ebike, and that was it, because we knew that Vermeil just liked effort. And
Yeah,
I'll tell you, there's one thing that was really a plus is when Coach Vermeil brought in the track coach from UCLA to start doing some drills and showing some stuff. And guess who they picked to be the rookie, because I was the track guy. And when he
yeah.
saw me run, and I was a hurdler and a pole vault, I was a pole vault. I was a foot and a half off the world's record in high school in the pole vault. And
Wow.
that's why I thought I could, get into the decathlon. And
Yeah,
so he saw me, and then they start using me. So all these little things started happening, and you know the reaction I get from the crowd when I catch a pass. That's why I sprinted into the end zone, you know, and then I jogged back, and Coach Ramil would see everybody be going nuts in the stands, and here I
Yeah.
am with the ball in my hand. He said, "What? You know, there's something going on here. We gotta check it. We gotta check this stuff out. Maybe this guy's for real."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was people around me and people that believed in me. So you know what? And I talk this all the time. I'm going to be doing a big presentation next week to one of the schools in the Delaware Valley, the Philadelphia area, and it's about mental health and you know some of the things that you've got to do in order to get through those kinds of things. And look,
Mm,
you know, I was called a shaky shorts back in the day, you know, and
mm.
you got to deal with it, and you know, and you move forward. And I was able to do that because I had strong people behind me that never quit on me, and there was no way I was going to fricking quit on them.
Oh, that's amazing. Such powerful words, Vince. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I thank you for just some of your initial vulnerability here, because as you know, within the mindful journey, as I shared with you, prior to this conversation, that's one of the things that we're striving to do is to normalize tough conversations. Uh,
Oh,
to,
well,
to,
look. Yeah, I mean, Adam, look what's going on right now. You know, just look around and see our youth and see what's going on with our homeless and see all the violence that's going out
yeah,
there. And a lot of it is because of mental illness
yeah,
and people that are just in such great despair. And,
yeah.
you know, what the pandemic did so many things, you know, for those that did survive, they may have survived physically, and you can see them, but internally, there's all kinds of stuff. And certainly in the mind and what
Mm,
it's done for them, especially our children.
yeah,
It's just brighter, you know. And then when you see what you know what the rate is of their growth in terms of their intellectual growth, it's just staggering
yeah,
that it's so poor.
yeah,
And we need to let people know that it's okay and it's okay to get help. Look, I got help. You know, I mean, I was
yeah,
struggling, and you
yeah,
know, thank God for my coach and you know pulled me through it, and some other people that helped pull me through it, especially my friends. And that was it. And then my wife
yeah,
Janet. You know, I was at the top of the mountain, man. And when I met that woman, see that USA jersey over there?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the woman in the movie. That's the woman in the movie. They say was a Giants fan and a bartender. Janet was there. You go. Look at that. Isn't that
yeah.
beautiful?
That
That
is.
Janet. Yeah, Janet was on the USA World Gymnastics team with Kathy Rigby, the Olympian. I mean, they were
Wow.
teammates.
Yeah.
And you know, she came into my life in '92, and I just was really frustrated. I was in broadcasting, and I was doing sales, and I was in debt. And
Hmm.
together we were able to work it out. You know, and you just never know what's going to happen and when somebody's going to come into your life and just open up and open your arms, and people will open their arms to you too if you're honest and truthful to them.
Yeah, I think that's key, Vince, right? And I love what you said, honest and truthful with them. And I think vulnerability, to your point of, kids today or even adults holding on to things that are going on in their headspace because they
Yeah.
fear that if they speak about it, that they'll be shunned or ridiculed or they'll be looked at as, as crazy, or, that depression has this stigma about it that, makes you weird. So I'd love to know, like, from your perspective, when you saw it, number one, would you mind sharing a little bit more about, some of these challenges that you went through? And then two, what helped you find the courage to say, you know what, I'm not okay. I need to find somebody who can support and assist so that I can navigate this effectively.
Well, I just I gone through I gone through a divorce, and then I was beginning to have relationship problems, and I'm thinking, hey, is this me? So I actually, you know, I reached out to somebody who reached out to somebody, and I sought some help, and you know, and I looked at myself and did an introspective look, and you know, I was wondering, okay, well, who are you going to put the blame on? You know, I mean, I'm not that. I wasn't that guy in the mirror looking at me, and I was looking at everybody else, like a lot of politicians do today. And, you know, they're
Mm,
always pointing fingers, you know, and
mm,
that pisses me off to no end. And, you know,
mm,
because the biggest solution is right there, you know, open up. So I did.
yeah,
And I went through, and then right as I was going through, the, I figured, okay, I'm in pretty good shape. I sort of understand now what's going on, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then Janet came into my life, and then that was it, and I never went back. You know,
mm,
so the beautiful thing is that you know you find that right partner, and that one that believes in you and is going to be with you, good or bad, and I just opened my arms and said, so we actually when we decided we were going to get married, Palm Beach, and there was a great bar down there called O Bar where the Kennedys always used to go to.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
we went to the O Bar, and I said, we're going to have a come to Jesus meeting, baby. We're getting married. Let's go. And I said, this is what you're going to hear. I opened up, and then she
Yeah.
said, well, guess what? This is what you're going to hear. She opened up, and so there's nothing hidden between us. And
Mm.
I think a lot of it is, I'm just laughing. She's laughing at me, and we're two jocks, man. She was a coach. She coached the Penn. And if you ever heard the conversations between she and I, they're hilarious. It's just like being in a locker room. But we our kids, everybody say they're pretty well adjusted. Hopefully, we haven't messed them up too much, But that it's basically a lot of it's about, it's about belief, and it's about discipline, and it's about having a routine and positivity, and it's this great thing that potential, this great word potential is, catch them doing something right. It's so easy to
Mm.
find fault in people, but catch them. And my children, if you go and you fall flat on your face, if you walked and you fell flat on your face or were tripped, that's a different story. But
Mm.
walking in this house. You better be going full speed, and it's okay. And Vinny now he's doing very well in the USFL, and our daughter has tackled. She worked with the 76ers. That's her cheerleading outfit up there over my right shoulder, when
Okay.
she was at Syracuse. Yeah, and that's Vinny. Vinny was on the USA, actually high school team against Canada in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
He tried, yeah, yeah. So he was that, and now he plays in the USFL. So they're both successful. They're both happy, and when they're happy, look, I live for my family. You see, that's my trifecta right there. There's
Yes.
no Vince Papale behind me. It's all about them, and that's what I
Mm.
live for. And I think people sometimes need to have that comfort zone that they can trust, and trust is such a that I think, Adam. I think that's the biggest thing. It's trust. Who can you trust today?
Mm.
And you want to lay yourself out, and then boom, you get
Yep. Yep.
blindsided.
Yes.
And hey,
Uh,
look, the Blind Side, the great with Michael Moore, the great. That's another great movie.
sure is. Yeah, that's an inspiring one, but I might be biased, but Invincible is my favorite of all, Vince.
Mine too. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, Miracle and Rocky. Rocky's up in Rocky's up there in
Yeah.
the very top of the mountain. So
Yes.
that
Yeah.
yeah. But Miracle, and our guys did Miracle, by the way, Mark and Gordon, Mayhem Productions, and so, and Disney. I mean, that was all done by the same one. So that's why I like that's why I sort of like my movie too. Our
Yeah.
movie, I should say.
Right, right. No, they did a great job with
Yeah, they
Miracle as
did.
well. I did not know that they were also involved with that. Speaking of the movie, we can go just to bring it because I do want to dive back to some of the stuff that you brought up here, especially with you used the word trust. So I want to get back to that at one point, but I do want to go back to the movie because I failed to ask you this on the front end. Many folks probably on this call love Mark Wahlberg, so I'd love to hear what it was like actually sitting knees to knees with Mark to tell your story. How was he in those phases, and has your relationship sustained to this day?
Well, I'm on the other side of this computer camera is a really wonderful Honda 50cc scooter that Mark Wahlberg used to run around the set with, especially in a football set at Penn, because it had the
Okay.
track there.
Yeah.
And he gifted that to our family after it was over, after we got done shooting the movie in '05. And I just got that thing all fixed up, and I drive around, and it's got the eagle wings and everything. That's Mark Wahlberg. And how's Mark? Let me tell you something. He was great. He was absolutely fantastic. We trained. We started shooting the movie in right around the 4th of July in 2005, and 2 weeks prior to that, we got all the people that were the football players, and they were all Arena Football League players that were active, and also former NFL players that got together for 2 weeks, and they were the same guys that did a couple of other football movies like The Longest Yard and
Mhm.
what was the other one? The Replacements. And Mark was the guy who was in charge of the second unit. He got them all together, but I got Mark for an hour a day by myself. And
Mhm.
Jim Jensen, who was a wide receiver and a tight end, he was the H back from the Miami Dolphins back in the
Mhm.
day. And the three of us worked on Mark, and he just was relentless in
Mhm.
wanting to learn the skill. If you can go to YouTube, Vince Papale, and you'll see a great interview that I did with Mark and how he was pretty beaten up. And the guys, and he was telling those guys, he said, "Bring it on." He said, "I'll take the shots." And
Mhm.
today, we text today all the time. Sometimes I'll FaceTime him when something really exciting is going on, whatever it might be. He always
Mhm.
picks up. But
Mhm.
we're very close, and we have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. And I just love him to death, him and his family, and we've grown together. I mean, my Vinny was 6 years old. My Gabrielle was 9 years old when we were shooting the movie, and they're still like his children. And my
Wow.
wife Janet, he met Janet for the first time, and she was going, she was going after him. She said he had just gotten done doing Four Brothers and also The
Yeah.
Departed, and he had to gain some weight in order to play that role. And she got right after him and said, "Man, oh man, you better, but he lost his weight. He got himself down to 185 pounds, lost
Wow.
about 25 pounds while we were shooting the movie, and
Yeah.
just gave it everything he had. And it was funny because he looked at her and said, "Who the heck is going to play you?" And
Yeah.
and it was Elizabeth Banks, and and Janet. She just talked to him. She got no filters, and Mark just loves her to death. So I can't say enough for Mark Wahlberg. I can't say enough for Greg Kinnear and
Mhm.
Elizabeth, and how they embraced the role and really attacked it. And with Greg Kinnear, he went down to Kansas City when Dick Vermeil was the head coach for the Chiefs and stayed with him for 3 days just to get his
Wow.
mannerisms. And you watch that movie again, and you'll see him. He is Coach Vermeil to the T. And then
Wow.
there's Coach Vermeil. I just came back from a couple months ago being out there in Canton, Ohio for his induction into the Hall of Fame. It's as
Wow.
good as it gets. So,
That's
it was great teamwork on everybody's part, on Disney's part, on the production, on Ken Mock, who took the risk, and Brad Gann, who wrote the original script that I had laying around here.
yeah.
And, just teamwork makes the dream work, and it came true. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Teamwork makes the dream work. I agree with that for sure, Vince. So, what was it like for you having to relive some of the potentially emotional moments when they were asking you, to get a feel for your story? Because I'm sure there were times when, and I know we talked in the front end of this conversation about how Hollywood embellishes some things and just makes scenes for the emotional appeal for the viewer, but having to relive some of those economic hard times and maybe any personal challenges that you endured. What was it like for you? Was it therapeutic as you went through that, or was it were you emotional, or what? Just speak to anything that you feel led to in that regard.
Well, I never got, Adam, I never got real emotional during the filming of the movie, except when I first walked on set at Franklin Field and I saw 3 or 4 or 5 number 83s going through. I never expected that with the body doubles and everything. But I'll tell you where I really got emotional was when I had the initial meeting. See, when I was sitting there and talking to Brad Gann and Ken Mock, who's the guy who took the risk, he created with Tyra Banks, America's Next Top Model. So this guy was huge out there in Hollywood, and he's the one to put up the upfront money to get a script written by Brad Gann, who had done a few movies that had already been on the silver screen. And we didn't have Zoom. This everything
Hmm.
was done over the phone. I sent everything out to them. I sent my scrapbooks and everything so they could take a look at the scrapbooks. But I'll tell you where it really got emotional. When I got to meet these guys for the first time, and they came up with a basic script. It was sort of like this, and they
Hmm.
came up with a basic script. But I met them, and I met them in Malibu. And I forget the place. It was called the Rose. And I'm there, and I'm looking around. There's all these celebrities sitting there, having breakfast there. And so, here I am. I'm just with these guys. I had a Bloody Mary or two, I guess, and I started to loosen up. And I started telling these guys stories of what it was like back then, and started getting really emotional about my dad My dad wasn't in the original script, and then he got added to the original script based on my insistence and also the acquiescence of our coach. I mean, of our director, Erison Core, and he had never directed a movie before. He did a lot of commercials that won Emmys and Oscars, but he never directed a movie. And and they saw that, and that's when I got really emotional. But when they shoot the movie, it's all done. It's all segmented. I mean, they'll do the same take 1,000 times. From 1,000 different angles and all kinds of different speeds and so forth and angles. But when I saw it for the first time, that's when I broke down. And when I saw it, here's where we saw it. They had the final screening, and they had Mark there, and they had me, and they had Greg, and they had Elizabeth. Everybody was there. We had it at the NFL headquarters in New York, and there was all the NFL people, all the Disney people, all the sponsors. We had to get the NFL's endorsement to use some of those sponsors, that were around back then, and they were all there. And I'm watching the movie, and it was difficult for me to connect because I was I was in a wow factor. I'm saying, holy crap, look how they put that scene together. I was there and I saw it. There's no way I could have ever anticipated like the mud scene, the rough touch scenes, and all those kind. I never would have anticipated them being able to do that. And the editing was just so crisp. But I was more into that. And then finally at the end, when they started and the music came and they started running through the credits, and I saw the picture of me, and I realized, holy crap, this movie's my story. It's our story. And then it says, and Vince lives in South Jersey with his wife Janet and his 2 children. Oh my God! And then guess what they did? They flipped the lights on, and right behind me is Mark sitting there with my daughter Gabriella and my son Vinny, and he's in the middle of them, and he was choking up. I'm like a mess, and the producers, we got you, and that's when I realized that this movie was based on my life. This movie wasn't about me. It was based on my life, which is no different than anybody else's life out there that has a dream and has some struggles to have it come true. As long as I get that right team behind them, teamwork gets it done. So that Adam was where I got the emotional aspect of it, and also that when that couple of scenes with my dad, because my dad had passed, and it was just so painful to see Kevin Conway, who did a terrific job with my dad. He actually sat down with me, tell me about your dad. I really want to pay it respect. And there was just that one scene, and I had to leave the set, and I never ever once left the set before, unless it was about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when they were doing the mud scenes and the touch football scenes. So there was no exterior light. That was another cool thing, how they did it with the sprinklers that made the rain come in. It was pretty wild.
Yeah. Vancers, you've said so much there that I want to unpack. And again, thank you for just your vulnerability and sharing so openly about the emotions you had when seeing. I'd love to know from some of what you said, and it just dawned on me now, what a daunting feeling it must be to know that somebody, I don't know if daunting is the right word, but just the enormity of the situation, knowing that a movie's made about you. I've got to assume that your visibility has only enhanced and increased. Has there ever been a time where you've had a imposter syndrome type moment where like you're thinking, I don't deserve this? Or did you feel that back then? And the reason I ask is because, again, trying to tie it back to our listeners today, I believe that so many people, they feel like they're not worthy of, that they start getting to a certain level of success, whether it's advancement in their career or finding the right partner or having children, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden they revert back because they, again, fear that they don't belong. So if that doesn't make sense, let me know. But what I'm ultimately asking is, was there a moment in time that you've had this imposter syndrome, like, gosh, they made a movie about me?
Well, I had it. I actually had a guy that was impostoring me back in the day that could have got me in a lot of trouble. But I had my alibis, with somebody that was pretending to be me, and I knew about it. And I had a bunch of friends that were in law enforcement that were season ticket holders, and that kind of thing, So they pretty much took care of that. So in a nice way, and just say, hey man, we know who you are, we know what you're doing, you better slow down. And you know, the great thing is there wasn't social media back then, and you know, we had our good times, and but nobody took it to extremes, and nobody got thrown in jail. You know, I mean, it was just pretty crazy and having a good time. Uh,
I
but
guess I
you know, I don't bite you. And I just came back from 3.5 weeks in Philly. I'm going back out. I'm going back out again this next week. I wish I were there now and be a part of what's going on with the Phillies and the Eagles. But I was there when the Eagles. I mean, when the Phillies beat the Braves for the championship there.
yeah.
I don't buy too many beers in Philadelphia. That's for sure. But you know what's really funny is when I'm with somebody and I'm somewhere else in another part of the country, whatever it might be, and somebody will come up and they say, "Does it ever stop? And does it ever get old?" I said, "No, never." And I said, Coach Ramil taught me a great saying. It says, "Meet everybody you ever meet as if they're the most important person you'll ever meet." And Charles
Oh, I love
Barkley,
that.
our Charles Barkley, beloved Charles Barkley, I love him. He taught me a big lesson because there was this little there was this, you know, we had our hangout. There was when Sixers would hang out, those back in the day, and I saw him one time and he was trying to have dinner or trying to have a good time, and everybody was coming up for autographs. And then after he got a little bit of a break, I said, "Does it ever get old?" He said, "Never, never." He said, "They're paying you a compliment when they feel comfortable enough to be able to come up to you and have a conversation or talk to you." And I've been around other guys where they don't want anywhere to go around them. And
Yeah.
so I learned a tremendous lesson that way because I think people, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite because people will say that, you know, what's one of the qualities of Vince and say, you know, he's just friendly to everybody. Maybe it's because I'm so trusting, you know, maybe
Yeah.
to a fault. And
Yeah.
I've been taken advantage of on a few occasions, but that's okay. You know, that's just the way it is because that's on them. It's not on me. But
Mm,
you
great
know,
perspective.
and that yeah, that's part of one, you know, one of the things I like talking about when I'm getting out there and talking. And it just being you, you know, and not trying to be anybody other than yourself. But you know, it was pretty crazy when I first started speaking. A guy came up to me and it was with a company. I have several agencies that promote me, and I get around pretty good.
Mhm.
And when I first started talking, when I found out who was going to be in the audience, it could be this, it could be that, it could be whoever it might be, and they're really high up there in that socioeconomic level, and also, you know, corporate level. And I'd sort of, oh my God, what can I say that's going to mean anything to them? And then I found, and I started gaining that confidence that I got a pretty good story. And you know, I have to
Yes.
say that two of my bad. I've spoken to the FBI, and the guy that invited me to speak to the FBI is now one of my best friends. Right across the street here, my Colonel Tom Mannion, his son was killed in Fallujah, and they
Mm,
asked me to come down and be the speaker at a golf tournament. And who's going to be in the audience? There's going to be a couple Navy SEALs. There's going to be a couple 3 stars, Delta Force, Black Hawk Down. Listen, I said, "Oh man, what can I say?" You know, I've spoken to all the armed forces, and you know what? I realize now that what I've done and what I've gone through is something that others wish that they would try to do, where they've already done that at another level or in a different environment. So I'm not
yes.
unique. You know, it's just that Hollywood and Disney has its tag on me. And but other than that, I'm just a guy that's got insecurities and just surrounded by a beautiful family and people that believe in me and love me, and I love them back. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so much power to what you said, Vince. I thank you for answering that question because we all have a story, right? And I think sometimes we fear that our story is not enough. But what
Hmm.
I have found through my own story is that when I was finally courageous enough to speak to some of the hardships and challenges, going back to your word you mentioned before, trust, it inherently created trust. Because when you show your story and the full you and are vulnerable with people, it lets them know that it's okay to be human too. And we all of a sudden sharing this human connection. And just hearing it from you here today that you too have insecurities like the rest of us is inspiring to say, well, you've continued to share your story, right? And people find inspiration. So I think if we could all share our story more often, we'll be better off for it.
Well, you know, you make me think. I have a great T-shirt that was given to us. Kenny Imer is our special teams coach. If we made a big hit in special teams, we get a T-shirt that said "Who's nuts?" Yeah, I mean, that, I've been called nuts before. That's okay. So
Yeah, yeah,
so when you were saying that, I was thinking of that T-shirt, and I give
yeah,
them. I get them. You can get them on my website, but
yeah.
can I just? I know that we're.
Please,
I don't know where
please.
we are. I don't know where to go,
Yeah.
but this book. It's in my website, vincepapale.com or Amazon.com.
Yeah.
And this is a great book. The guy there, Dennis Franks, is the young guy that I lost tragically, just like that. When he was basically 3 days from when he passed, he was supposed to be down here with me to get some get a physical, and he didn't make it in
Yeah.
time. And
Uh,
you know what? He went to Michigan, and he was too small to play in the NFL. Wound up becoming special teams captain. I was too old. And we have this thing, last laugh, a vision of victory, and we came up with these 7 V's. And you know what? It's a story and it's a synopsis of what happens. A lot of the things in the intrinsics of what we were talking about. It's in there, including 12 stories of people that are of great prominence and fame that have looked at our vision and our victor's code and said, you know what, I can tell my success story through your victor's code. And they did it. And it's in the last laugh from Vision to
yes.
Victory. So, and
Thank
if
you for
if you
sharing.
want to, just send it out to me. I'll autograph it and get it right back to you. But yeah, man, it's all good.
Thank you. We can find that on vincepapale.com, and it's the last. And
Yep,
I'll send a note out to all the community members after and social media and so
yep.
forth. So that's great. Thank you for sharing. I just two more questions if your time still permits, and or unless the conversation goes somewhere else. I'd like to touch just a little bit on your cancer diagnosis, if you feel comfortable. I know we
Oh
didn't
yeah.
talk too much about that, but I know so many people in our world are affected by it one way or another, and fortunately, I've never gone through something personally like that. Of course, I've had family members and friends, etc. But Vince, could you walk us through your mindset of when you heard those words, you have cancer? How did you embrace that invincible mentality then to help you navigate that so it wasn't like a woe is me, but I'm going to fight this like I fought other things in my life?
Well, um, it was way before Invincible, but there's a great deal of irony. You see this right here. It has the Jaguars on it, and it's the crucial catch. And God bless the NFL for what they've done this past month, and a lot of it was with breast cancer. But last week I had the great opportunity. Doug Peterson, who's the new head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguar, is a really good friend of ours, and he lives right around here now. We've known him since he was a player. And and Tom Coughlin has something called the J Fund, and it's about pediatric cancer. And so the preface it's saying, right, one of the things that I always did when we were rookies, and it was me and Dennis Franks and me. I'm getting a cramp here. And
Yeah,
anyway, Denny, yeah, it feels like I'm playing. That's from all the outdoor work I'm doing in this heat. But Dennis and I used to go after we had our Monday. We didn't have the Sunday night games and all that. Everything was pretty. If you're lucky to play in a late game. And Monday was always film study and a little bit of shakeout. And then we would go to the burn center because one of my students was critically burned. And we go to one of the top burn centers in the Philadelphia area and visit the victims. And then we would go to Children's Hospital. And that's where the young kids, pediatric cancer, and a lot of it was the oncology ward and visiting the young kids and their parents. That was a routine that we did. We didn't have cameras or anything else like that ever followed us. And I think that because of having done that, I had a great deal of respect for those and what it takes in order to have you, as anybody who's inflicted with cancer, whatever the disease you might have, how you can get through it. And then finally, here I am, Janet, and she's saying, "How old are you?" Whatever I am, and it was 2001. And she says, "It's time for you to get that test. The guys never want to take that test. Because they don't want, colonoscopy. You got now. Everybody, I couldn't even say it, let alone spell it.
mm,
And so anyway, I got a colonoscopy, and I had an advocate, and Tony Infantolino was he was one of the doctors at Jefferson University in Philly, and he was my advocate throughout the whole thing. And they found a cancerous polyp, about this big, and he sent he sent it out to 8 pathologists, and it turned out the cancer that the polyp was encapsulated. So what they did is they literally took 18 inches of my colon out through my navel. It was one of the first laparoscopic surgeries ever. and they
Oh.
just it's like a hose, so you put that hose back together, and that's what happened. And I had no chemo, no radiation, and that was it. And 3 days, 4 days later, I'm Jay Wright, my buddy who's the head coach at Villanova, saw me riding my bike on a boardwalk in Ocean City, New Jersey. He says, did what? Didn't I just see you? I said, yeah, it's all good. And I no chemo, no radiation. So I
Mhm.
became a spokesperson for that. And I'll tell you, when you said, how did I feel? Holy crap, it was the biggest hit I ever took, other than getting hit by Charles Phillips with the Oakland Raiders. I mean,
Mm.
boom, you can't even imagine. But, my friend Tony, he says, what, go on a family vacation. You're a family guy. My kids are like 3 and 6 at the time. And we go, they have no idea what's going on. My friend, when I was having my surgery, Nancy Ottaviano, God bless Nancy, she took the kids to the zoo, and our daddy's in the hospital. He's getting some tests taken. They had no idea what's going on.
Mm.
And my wife, I'll have to send you the picture, Tony, of the picture that I took 2 days before the surgery. And I call it the last picture, like Jesus, the Last Supper. And there's my beautiful children, there with me. And I just was so confident going in that I had the right team behind me, and the social workers, the oncology, the surgeon, the advocates, and then certainly the research and what was going to happen. And here I am. So, I'm a spokesperson for
That's
colorectal
great.
cancer awareness. So the key is get the test. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And I'm due for
Yeah.
one. So Janet's on my butt about getting another one. No pun intended. So
Well, hopefully you'll take your own advice and go get another
yeah,
one.
yeah.
There are methods out there now, I think, that are a little less invasive, but certainly not my world to talk in that regard because I don't know enough about it. But
Whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But it's okay. If you catch it early enough, you can get you can get you'll survive. So
yes, yes.
speaking of
Well,
the devil, yeah, I see.
yeah.
I see there. Janet is calling, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, I'll close with just this
No,
question,
that's
unless
she knows.
there's.
She knows I'm on
Okay.
on a test. She's probably wondering, where are we going to do? What are we going to do? Where are we going to go?
Yeah. Well, Vince, first of all, again, before I close, if there are any questions from those listening in, please feel free to put them in the chat function. And if we have time, we'll get to them. But Vince, thank you again just for your vulnerability today, for your inspiration, for you embracing your story, and for continually imparting words of hope and inspiration. I don't think we can ever hear enough of it, especially in the times coming out of COVID now. And I'd like to close with inspiration, some invincible qualities, if you will, and a message to anyone who may be listening in today who feels they're at their wits' end. What is your message to them? Someone who's in pain, who's hurting, who feels like they can't keep going. What's your message to them today?
Well, first of all, like Rudy always says, never quit. And Jimmy Valvano said, you just never give up. Knowing that it was dying from cancer when he got up there at the ESPYs, one of the most emotional scenes you've ever seen. That and Stuart Scott. I mean, just incredible men. So what you could just go and Google up Stuart Scott's speech or Jimmy Valvano's speech. For me personally, it's just surround yourself with people that you can trust, that have proven themselves to be trustworthy. That's it. So with me, it's without a doubt my family. It's Janet, it's Gabriella, it's Vincent. And they're the ones. And then you have your advocates around you, but don't be afraid to seek help. And don't be afraid that something isn't perfect, because we're in an imperfect world, but somehow we're surviving. And if you surround yourself with that good team, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your family. If you don't have anybody that close to you, just find somebody that you can trust and roll with it. But whatever, just never quit and never give up. There's always hope out there. And you got to be tough, and you've got to be able. You got to be agile. Life's inaudible. You don't know what tomorrow. And I always say, Adam, this is what I like to finish when I finish my speeches. I said, you got to win today because you do not know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Mm,
Look what happened with COVID. Here we are today. We're free, and next thing you know, we got to wear a mask and kids aren't going to school and this is happening. And so you just enjoy today for what it is, get through today, and then you'll get tomorrow when tomorrow happens. So win today.
Win today. Great final wisdom. We'll close there. Vince, thank you again. I'll follow up with you offline. I appreciate you very much. You certainly made an impact on me today, and I trust others. I'll send out info on the last laugh and follow up with the Mindful Journey community. And again, thank you so much. And thanks for those who tuned in.
Thank you.
I will we'll close here. And Vince, I'll follow up with you offline. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having the guts to contact me. That took a lot of guts. I appreciate it, Adam. Thank you. It was great.
You bet. Thank you. Take care.
All
See
right,
ya.
buddy. Win the day.
Bye. Yes,
See you, man.
sir. See ya.